Here is a question that sounds initially grotesque, yet serves as one of the most profound entry points into understanding our own biology. How did your ancestors eat raw meat routinely for millions of years without dying? The answer reveals a stomach that worked nothing like yours today, an ancestral relationship with bacteria that would horrify a modern health inspector, and a set of counterintuitive survival strategies that completely reframe human fragility. The widespread cultural assumption that raw meat equals instant death is a modern bias, and modern biases make incredibly poor tour guides through the ancient world. To truly understand how this was possible, we must first look at the staggering timeline. Our genus Homo emerged nearly 3 million years ago. However, the controlled, routine use of fire for cooking only became widespread between 400,000 and 1 million years ago. This leaves a massive, multi-million-year evolutionary gap. During this time, every single hominin ancestor in your direct lineage was consuming raw meat without heat, seasoning, or sterilization. This was not an emergency measure. This was not a desperate survival scenario. For millions of years, this was simply breakfast. The question is not whether they survived it. Your very existence proves they did. The question is how. Let's begin with the human stomach. Because right here, inside your own gut, is where the story of human evolution gets genuinely strange and a little bit terrifying. If you could travel back 2 million years and look inside the stomach of an early human ancestor, you wouldn't find a digestive system like yours. You would find a biological furnace. Early hominin stomach acid wasn't just strong, it was hyper-aggressive, liquid fire. We know this because evolutionary biologists recently did something brilliant. They compared the stomach acidity of hundreds of different animals. They looked at pure hunters, vegetarians, and scavengers, and they found a hard, universal rule. The more disgusting and bacteria-ridden an animal's food is, the more brutal its stomach acid has to be. The stomach adapts to the horrors it is asked to process. And what early hominin stomachs were asked to process was raw muscle, raw organs, raw bone marrow, and meat that was, well, let's be honest, it was rotting. This is the dark secret that popular paleo diet trends completely skip over. Early humans were not majestic apex predators, tracking down pristine, fresh game every afternoon. For a massive chunk of our history, we were scavengers. Picture this. A pride of lions makes a kill. They eat their fill and leave. Hours later, or maybe days later, a desperate band of early humans creeps out of the shadows. They are left with a sun-baked, fly-blown carcass. The meat is already changing color. It is crawling with millions of deadly pathogens, salmonella, and lethal bacteria. By any modern standard, eating this is a death sentence. But our ancestors ate it anyway, and they processed it. Their stomachs possessed an acid concentration so extreme it could obliterate a bacterial invasion on contact, turning a toxic biohazard into a high-calorie feast. It was a genetic superpower shaped by generations of brutal survival. Your stomach, by contrast, is completely relaxed. It's soft. Why? Because hundreds of thousands of years ago, we tamed fire. We started cooking. We invented a way to let heat sanitize our food before it ever touched our lips. Over millennia, because your food arrived pre-purified, your body realized it didn't need to waste massive amounts of energy-producing liquid battery acid anymore. Your gut stepped down from the evolutionary arms race. So the next time you get food poisoning from a restaurant that left the chicken out a little too long, don't just blame the kitchen, blame fire. Because you are carrying the pampered, delicate stomach of a creature that traded raw survival for a well-done steak. Now, let us turn to what they actually ate first. Because in the ancient world, sequencing mattered enormously. Organ meats came before muscle meat, liver, kidney, brain, bone marrow. These were not just preferred, they were strategically prioritized, and for reasons that make immediate, practical sense once you understand the brutal reality of a raw food diet. Organ meats are mechanically soft. They require dramatically less chewing force than raw muscle tissue. Muscle tissue is fibrous, tough, and genuinely difficult to break down without the structural softening that heat provides. Think about it. A raw liver can be consumed with relative mechanical ease. A raw steak, by contrast, requires an intense, heavy jaw architecture, one that early hominins possessed, but modern humans have substantially lost. But out of everything, bone marrow deserves particular attention. The archaeological evidence for deliberate marrow extraction is extraordinary. Cut marks and heavy percussion fractures on ancient animal bones, some dating back 2.5 million years, prove that these bones were deliberately cracked open to access the deep marrow cavity inside. Marrow wasn't just food. Marrow is essentially pure, concentrated fat. In a raw food world, extracting sufficient calories from unprocessed food was a constant, grueling metabolic challenge. A dense column of pure fat, locked away inside a bone, was not a secondary resource, it was the ultimate prize. But survival was never just about what they ate. It was about how much illness they simply absorbed and continued through. This is the part of the story that is most uncomfortable for modern sensibilities, and therefore the part most worth sitting with. Early hominins almost certainly did get sick from raw meat consumption, regularly. The question is not whether foodborne illness existed in their world. It unquestionably did. The real question is, what did illness actually mean in an environment already defined by extreme background mortality? Death was everywhere. It came from predators, from infection, from waterborne disease, parasites, childbirth, a dozen lethal threats operating simultaneously. In that context, a recurring gastric illness from raw meat was not a crisis. It was just one more item on a very long list of biological costs that a functioning hominin body was expected to absorb and survive. Natural selection, operating across millions of years, was not selecting for people who never got sick. It was selecting for people whose bodies could take the hit, recover, and keep moving. The evolutionary threshold was survivability, not comfort. This distinction matters because it reframes the entire question. We ask how they ate raw meat without dying, as though the answer must be that it was somehow safe. It was not safe. The answer is that safety, in the modern sense, was never a luxury they could afford. There is one more defense mechanism we have to look at, and honestly, it is the most counterintuitive of all: the gut microbiome. Right now, you have an entire community of trillions of microbial organisms living inside your digestive tract. Modern science is finally waking up to the fact that this inner ecosystem controls everything: your immune system, your digestion, and how you fight off deadly infections. But here is the catch. The gut of an early human looked absolutely nothing like yours. Their inner worlds were forged by millions of years of eating raw meat. They pulled wild plants straight from the dirt. They drank from unchlorinated rivers. Their environment delivered a relentless, chaotic, and beautifully diverse flood of microbes into their bodies every single day. Our modern, hyper-sanitized food system, it completely wiped that out. A growing mountain of research suggests that this catastrophic crash in our microbial diversity isn't a sign of progress. It is a massive loss of human resilience. We didn't upgrade, we vulnerabilized ourselves. The ancient gut microbiome was a fortress, a brutally robust, hyper-diverse ecosystem perfectly engineered to crush invading pathogens. What does that mean for our ancestors? It means their ultimate shield against the deadly risks of raw meat wasn't just a pool of burning stomach acid. It was a thriving internal army, an entire microbial superpower calibrated by millions of years of evolution, explicitly trained to kill the exact bacteria and parasites that would land a modern human in the ICU. They weren't just eating raw meat, they were built for it from the inside out. So here is what the full picture actually looks like. Early hominins ate raw meat for millions of years, not because it was safe by modern standards, but because they carried a digestive system built by and for exactly that challenge: a hyperacidic stomach, a deeply resilient gut microbiome, a jaw designed for the brutal mechanical demands of uncooked tissue. They strategically prioritized soft organ meats and calorie-dense marrow. And they maintained a biological relationship with illness that treated an infection as a manageable cost, not an unacceptable crisis. The raw meat did not fail to kill them because they were lucky. It did not fail to kill them because ancient meat was somehow cleaner. It failed to kill them because they were, in the most literal biological sense, built for it. And here is the uncomfortable truth. What we call human fragility today, our genuine inability to safely consume what our ancestors ate routinely, is not the baseline condition of our species. It is a byproduct. It is the result of a very long, very successful domestication of our own digestive systems, driven by the single most transformative technology in human history: fire. Fire did not just change what humans ate, it changed what humans were capable of eating. And in doing so, quietly, over hundreds of thousands of years, it changed the very stomach you are using to process your lunch today into something your ancestors would not recognize at all: